Welcome everyone to the 53rd Fireside Chat. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to start off with Sheryl Bailey, who has a couple of questions for you, Tom.
Me first? Goodness. Oh, hi, Tom.
Hi, Sheryl. What are your questions?
I have two questions, if I have time. The first question, I try to make it shorter, but it's just not. I want to go expand on the question I asked last time, and I'd ask you, how to help others while I'm trying to grow and become and get rid of my fears and all those things, and how sometimes when I would interact with the people and everybody around me, how they were not reacting very well, and I didn't know what was going on. Because I thought for sure me getting rid of my fears was going to help them too. But it wasn't helping them. It was causing them problems. So I asked you how to help others while I change and grow. And you said in a caring, loving way, slowly show them the new Sheryl in the new way that I would, just don't put it all out there and this is what's going on, because it was scaring them. I didn't know that white look on their face was fear. I thought they just didn't understand what was going on. But then after I talked to you, it was like, oh, they're scared. I'm doing this. So, see, and you told me I'm a player in other people's reality and need to be understanding of where they are and gently show the changes, help them feel safe and that everything is going to be all right. Safety first. With caring, I had no clue the change in me was scaring people. I had no clue at all. I thought, but this was the part that was about me. My heart, I'm working really hard here to get rid of my fears, so it'll help you be around me. So as I was reducing my entropy and within myself, I was raising entropy in other people. So I asked you how to split and so I asked you how do I do this without scaring these people? Because I had no idea. And so you told me I needed to split my awareness like I do when I drive a car. Like when I drive a car, I can, where'd my light go? Oh, goodness. Oh, there we go. So I had trouble splitting my awareness unless I was in a car. And you told me to split my awareness, and with part of my awareness on how I was interacting, the other part of my awareness on other and how my interaction with them was affecting them and not scaring them. So I decided that anybody that needs to interact with me, they just need to come with me and go for a ride. That way, I know how to split my awareness in the car. So if somebody tries to, come on, we got to go for a ride. And somebody on the comment section said, yeah, that's a good idea, Sheryl. It's a data stream ride along. So I've been really practicing at when someone comes up to interact with me, I'm not really making them go for a ride in the car. It felt like the first few times I started, it's like, okay, here they come. They're heading right for you, Sheryl. Split your awareness. I was like, oh, here we go. And the first couple times I didn't do so well, but then I got it a couple times. And I noticed that when I was talking to them, it was almost like the I, that's me, wasn't there. So this is when some really odd things I noticed was, it was almost like, this sounds crazy now that I look at it, think it again. It seemed like more of like, it wasn't me. It was more like a group mind kind of was there. And it was just so much easier to see how I was interacting with others. So I was wondering, is this some kind of group mind that was within us all that is just like dormant because we live so separated and we just need to relearn how to do this trick? To me, it is like a trick. Like, I had no idea that you could split your awareness while you talk to somebody else. It just seemed really odd. But then I noticed a pattern at the immersive. And after the second day in an immersive with everyone, meditating all day long, it it would kind of switch into that, where it was kind of like a group mind. When you're talking to somebody else, it's not about you. It's about the whole thing. So is the person becoming the whole thing, or is it just like a group mind thing? I think that if we can all understand this piece better, then we all can do better as we're growing and interacting with each other. Because like I was doing before, I was just trying to get rid of my fear, and I was scaring everybody else too.
Okay. I can talk to that. It was your intent is what started this, your intent to be sensitive to how other people were reacting to you and to what was going on in their mind. And because of that intent, and I mentioned to you about kind of splitting your awareness, which of course is a metaphor. It's not actually you have an awareness and then you tear it in two. You're not, it's a metaphor for having more than one perspective at the same time. So what you did is you just changed your perspective, and you can change that perspective from, in three ways. If you're interacting, say, with another person, one, it can be just you. You're inside your head, and you are you, and those other people are just outside, and you're not really connected to them at all. The other way is the opposite of that, where you can be in their head, and you can see the world through their eyes and their feelings, and understand exactly what they're thinking and where they're going. So now you kind of are sharing their mind space. And then the third place is where you were, which is the right place to be, is where you're some of both, where you're getting the data stream that defines your point of view. You're getting the data stream that defines their point of view, and you and they as a whole thing. So it's just a different perspective. And with your intent to do that, the system started to give you data that described those things. So you had an intent to do it, so the system started sending you data streams that had data from your perspective, from their perspective, and from the perspective of the whole. And it is a thing you can learn to do, and it's really a good thing to do most of the time. When you're talking with people, you really need to be aware of how you are affecting them. And, sometimes you will upset other people just by maybe being truthful or being honest or being who you are, being authentic. Sometimes that can be upsetting to people. And you have to be aware of that and try to interact with them in a way that doesn't frighten them, because if you're frightening people, that's not good. That's not helping anything get along. So if you can, as I told you before, if you can come at it a little more gently and a little more slowly, that maybe is good enough. But sometimes there are people that you just can't interact with very well, just because of the way you are and the way they are. And almost any interaction, slow, fast, cautious, anything, is going to create a problem, because that's just the nature of those persons and the relationship you have with them. In that case, then you have to basically interact in a very superficial, non-threatening way, and keep all the other stuff that's inside of you to yourself. In other words, there are times when it's not good to share, and there are times when it is good to share. So sometimes you just have to realize there are some people you just maybe can't share with, and that's okay. You can still be nice to them. You can still, have a good relationship with them in all the practical things of daily life. And, we do that at work most of the time. When we go to work, we're not intimately connected to all those people at work. We maintain a superficial connection. So we chit-chat with them about the weather and about our children or about our pets or whatever else is going on, maybe at the job, but it all stays on kind of a superficial level. And you never really let them see deeper into you, because that's really not appropriate in a workplace. What's appropriate is everybody stays focused on getting the job done. Well, sometimes you have to do that even in your personal life. You have to maintain a relationship that is primarily superficial and polite, and you get the job done. Things that have to be done, cooperation, things that you have to share and interact with this person, but you just keep yourself to yourself when dealing with those people. Now, that's not most people. That's just a very few people are like that. But you will run into those kinds of people sometime. You need to be aware of it, be aware of how they're reacting to you, and then just kind of rein yourself in to where you're not sharing that with them anymore. And it's sad if that's somebody, close to you in your family or something, if that's your mother or your father or your spouse or somebody, then that's kind of a sad place to be. But sometimes it needs to be that way. You can only go as far as, they are willing to interact with you. If they start to feel uncomfortable once you show them a little more of what's under the hood, then you need to stop showing them that and just be nice, superficial, smile, cooperate, do what you need to do, but don't push that, because it's part of the sad part of love is that things don't always work out in a happy way. People that you love and people that love you. Sometimes there's just so much fear bottled up there and so much ego and so many beliefs that you just can't connect with them in a meaningful way. But you still can connect with them in the way that you need to interact with them, to work together, to, just like at work, to get the work done that needs to be done. You can do that. So what you experienced was something that is good to experience. And eventually you'll find that you experience people like that all the time without really having to go to the trouble of making a particular intent to do it. That's just how you interact with people. You see people and you see it from their perspective and your perspective. And you kind of know when you're talking whether, oops, I better tread carefully here because they're starting to pucker up a little bit and I don't want to go there anymore. So then you just back up and change the conversation someplace else. So it helps you optimize the communication with other people, because you can't communicate with somebody if they don't really want to share, or if they really don't want to communicate, or if they're frightened. You can't communicate. So you just communicate what you can and keep the rest inside. So you did very well. You did exactly what I told you to do. And it is a great way to get a bigger picture of how you're affecting people so that you don't push them farther than they want to go and what they're comfortable with. Because making other people uncomfortable is almost always not on the path to success.
Oh, thank you for that. I will take that with me. Are you done?
Yep, all done. Go on to number 2.
Number 2. This kind of goes with the last question a little bit. I listened to you speak the other day about how this system is set up a certain way for left logical thinking beings, and that it's just like cogs in a wheel where it just all fits together, and that if you think that way, you can just go through the cogs, the picket fence, then you get 2.5 kids that, you can just go with it and it'll go, your life will just go with it.
Right.
And then you started talking about the different ones. And you started talking about the different ones, and I was like, oh my God, that's that look on their faces when I'm just interacting with them as I see and understand the world from my perspective. I can't, because I'm just now learning how to get into their perspective and see it from there. Mm-hmm. I always thought that it was just something about me that they just didn't like. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's something about that doesn't like me. It's both ways. So for the life of me, I was just trying, oh, this is terrible. I was trying to fit in, but I wasn't ever going to fit in no matter what I did. So I quit doing that. And then as I, was just being myself, as I'm interacting with people, they just get this look on their face, and that's what it is. I just thought everybody knows that there's different people here, that everybody doesn't think the same way.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is very, very similar to the first question, and that is true. A conversation, a communication only takes place when you talk to somebody and that somebody knows how to process what you're saying. That somebody
Oh,
can process what you're saying. If you say something and they just can't process it, it's not that they don't like you. It's not that they think you're awful or that you're flighty or that you're insane or anything. It's just that they can't process it because they don't think like that and they don't feel like that and they don't understand things like that. So your reality is different enough from their reality that they just can't process it. And you say they get that look in their eyes. That's really not, it's not a look of there's something wrong with you. That's a look of, huh? They just can't,
right.
they can't process the information. And the reason they can't process it is they don't have your experience. They don't have your connections. They don't have your bigger picture. They just have the picture that is defined by their own experience. And their own experience has probably not been challenged a whole lot because, like you say, in our culture, there is a whole set of things to do and not do, and you go right along in the big cultural machine, and you do all the things you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do them, and you pop out the other end a perfectly normal, average kind of person in the culture. You say, and it doesn't mean that you don't know that there are people who are different around. It's just you don't know what to do with them. You don't know how to process the things they say. So the answer is the same. Don't give people information that they can't process, because that does not create a communication. So telling people things that they can't process is usually worse than not telling them anything at all, even though you're trying to help them understand. But if they're asking the question and they're pursuing it because they want to understand, fine. Now you can explain your reality to them. But if they're not eager to understand your reality because it makes them uncomfortable because they just can't process who you are and where you're coming from and what you're trying to say, then just don't say anything. Just, it takes, two people have to have similar realities in order to communicate well. If you get two people with very different realities, it's very hard for those two people to communicate. It's very difficult. They have to start out almost defining terms. What does this mean? And what does that mean? Sort of thing, So people within a culture are good at processing the stuff that's typical within that culture. The stuff that's not typical within that culture, they have trouble processing. Or at least some of it they do. And that's that stare you're getting back from them. It's nothing negative towards you. It's not anything other than the fact that they just don't know how to put what you've said into some kind of context that means something to them.
Oh.
So you have to be aware that it's not personal. It's just that you're speaking in a language they don't understand. Even though you're both supposedly speaking English, you're saying things that they can't, that they don't have any context for in their own life. So that's what's going on there. And, I run into that all the time too. People ask me to tell them about my experiences. The experiences in the great beyond, the people you've met, the things you've done, the battles you've fought, the whatever, all this stuff in the non-physical. And I don't, because of that very reason. If these people have not experienced that, then I can't really communicate to them because they won't be able to process it. They can only process it intellectually. Intellectually, they could follow along and go, but it won't really mean anything to them. And when it's all done, they will think, do I believe that? Is that guy nuts? Or what? Do I believe it? Do I disbelieve it? Was he just pulling my leg? What's going on? They don't know how. They don't have any context by which to process the information. So you're not really helping them any. And in fact, I end up feeling like I've confused them more than I helped them, because now they think that what I've told them is the way it is out there. And if it isn't that way, then they reject whatever it is they get, which is not right. That was just my interpretation of the data. They need their own interpretation of the data. So, yes, that's a thing that, that's a lesson that takes a while to learn, is that you have to not tell people more than what they can process. And, there's a boundary there because you're guessing how much they can process. So you can tell them just a little bit, but then if you get that glassy-eyed stare back from them, you've gone far enough. And, it's time to stop, back up, and, talk about the weather or something else.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just, you come from a very right brain, holistic viewpoint of reality, and you're learning things, and you live in a space that's not typical in our culture. Although there probably are cultures where it would be more typical. There probably are cultures where more people think like you do than this culture. Well, it would probably be in some indigenous tribe someplace in the eastern part of the northern hemisphere. That would be my guess. But you're learning, you're growing, you're becoming, and don't stop doing that. Keep on doing it. You don't need everybody's approval to do it. You have to do it because you want to do it, because it's helping you and that you're growing, and you just keep growing. And if other people have trouble with that, well, just be nice to them, but keep a shallow relationship and don't try to push anything on them. Don't try to get them to understand you in that sense. Talk to them in more generalities, not so much in specifics. And that's probably about as good as it's going to get. You can't have this real deep, personal, sharing relationship with everybody. You just can't have that with everybody. And if you're lucky enough, you can have it with one or two people. But even that, you need to be pretty lucky just to find those one or two people. So,
right. Caroline understands me. She's the best. Can I just one short little thing? Do we have time?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Now, when you was talking about you were talking about meditation and how when we first start meditating, we do it religiously. We do it every day, and we want to do it every day, and we work on it, and then all of a sudden it stops. And you called this how it ebbed and flowed, and how it seemed like it would just stop all of a sudden, and then you stop meditating. I kind of maybe detected a pattern here, because you said that you thought when it stops, you thought that may be just a time for the brain to process that information. But I experienced something really weird in that in the first part of the last 3 years, I was learning how to meditate, and I was learning how to do my fear work and ego and my belief work. I was doing all of that at the same time. Then all of a sudden it just stopped. This was right after 2 years. It just stopped. I stopped meditating, and then there was a shift, and I stopped meditating, but I was still really focused on doing my fear work and all that stuff. So what I noticed is what was that little shift and that little break in between the two. It shifted. The first part of it was coming out of my intellect. My intellect was working on, what am I afraid of? The intellect was very strong on that part. The second piece, when I stopped meditating, it was more felt like from the being level. Like it was like getting deeper into those fears. Well, I know it was getting deeper in them fears because I was getting more scared as it went, but it seemed like it was more of at the being level. So I was just wondering, that break in between really meditating all the time and then you just stop. I wonder if that's the system trying to get you to click in to where you're walking around in alert theta, not the drowsy theta where you're just drowsy and want to eat all day, but the alert theta where you're actually thinking there, where you're actually interacting from that state. So I was just really curious about that, because I did have that space in between the two, just like you talked about, where it just stopped and I could not make myself meditate. And I was just, well, then fine, I just won't meditate right now. So but that's when it was like the training wheels popped off and I went, oh no, there goes my binaural beats. But I just let it be. So I let the binaural beats just fall away. Then I noticed I could click my brain in and out of that mode where before I couldn't when I had the training wheels on.
Yes, that is pretty typical. And don't be surprised if some months or longer from now you want to meditate again and you'll get back into that process. It's a cyclical process. It comes and it goes. Okay. And that's likely to happen. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. But what's going on is that when you are doing the meditation, you are learning things, you're connecting with things, you're seeing bigger pictures, you're pulling in a lot of new information about who you are and what you are and how you are, and you're pulling all this stuff in. Well, you can only do so much of that before you have to start applying it to your everyday real life. And that's the switch. So it's like theory and application. When you're meditating, you're getting all the theory, the understanding, the basics, and then you get this feeling that you need to apply it to your life. You have to live it, not just understand it, but you have to live it. And then you live it for a while until all those things you learn become a part of you at the being level. And when you do that, you feel real comfortable as you in the being level now. You've integrated all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Now you'll start to get the inclination, gee, I ought to start meditating again. I miss that. And then you'll start meditating, and then you'll pile up a whole bunch of new ideas and concepts and ways of seeing the world. And then you'll go through a phase where you need to apply that and apply it to your world. And then you'll go back through the process of changing yourself to integrate all those things you've learned into the being level. And that needs to be done here, not in a meditation state. That needs to be done in your everyday life, you see. So that's why you go back and forth. And it's a typical thing where you will, sometimes, like you say, you'll do it for a couple of years, and you may not do it for a year or two, however long it takes you to integrate that. But once you've integrated it and you're feeling really good about, well, okay, I pretty much am all that stuff I learned, then you'll start feeling like you need to start your meditation again. And it cycles like that for most people. You'll go in and out of that through periods. So don't feel bad like, well, gee, I'm not even meditating anymore, What's wrong with me? Am I backsliding? No, it's part of the process of taking what you learn in meditation and actually applying it to your everyday life here in this physical reality, not in the non-physical space of consciousness, but in the physical space of this reality. So that's what's going on. It's perfectly normal, and it's a good thing.
Like class. Thank you so much, and I love you to pieces.
Love you too, Sheryl. Just keep working, girl.
I am working it.
Thank you, Sheryl. Didi, please go ahead with your questions.
Okay. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Didi.
Hi. Nice to be here again. So let's see. I'm so curious about this question. Yes, I have brought up my notes here. This is about a choice situation regarding diet. So I have not been eating meat a lot in my life. Most of the time I've been a vegetarian. So, and normally I don't eat meat. And there are, of course, exceptions, but there seems to be more advantages with avoiding it and avoid also fish. But out of a health perspective, I really don't know. It seems to vary among people what food that suits you best is something that I have discovered. Because I think there are a lot of beliefs within what kind of food that is healthy for people. And you think that some foods are healthy for everyone. But it seems to me that that's not the case, that it varies a lot around people.
Yes.
But from the evolution perspective, I cannot see any reason why we should interrupt the evolution of animal consciousness if we don't have to, and why we should support the meat industry the way it works today. But I do have a very messy body with quite a few health challenges. And it has come to a point where I think it's likely that my health could get better if I include meat and fish in my diet. So now we can see both advantages and disadvantages with this situation. So, and there are a few things I've been thinking about, because being low in energy and not having enough dopamine is very good for my fear work, since it brings my fears up to surface so I can work with them very easily. So my fear work would maybe be more efficient by continuing eating vegetarian food and being low in energy. But on the other hand, if I change my diet, it might help me to get more energy and heal. And I would most likely be a better, happier parent and friend. I could also try to heal myself, but I think that would maybe be cheating. And I could also, if I start eating meat, support organic livestock breeding and maybe help that industry to establish further. So my dilemma here is, could a human's well-being override animals' rights to have their evolution path uninterrupted? So,
Well,
I wonder if you can help me with the big picture here.
Okay, sure. Well, you're right, in as much as everybody's different. We're all individual in our biology. There's a lot of things that are common to to being human, but there's an awful lot of difference and variation in being human as well. And you're right, some people, need more of some kind of nutrients than others. It's just the way your body either makes or processes those nutrients or fails to process those nutrients. So diet should be something that works for you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I'm a big experimentalist. I say, if you have a theory that something might be helpful, try it out and see, just as an experiment. Okay. And see whether or not, if you eat the meat, and see whether or not that actually helps. I suspect, now this is just my guessing, I suspect that that's not the problem. Mm-hmm. That it's not that the meat isn't going to really make that much difference. Now, you may get some placebo effect from it, which you figure, this is really going to help. Then it does help because you've got this belief that it's going to help. You may get some of that, but that won't last a long time. So you may get a little upsurge in the beginning if you do that. But you should experiment. And the reason I say that is that, animals eat other animals, right? Tigers and bears, they eat whatever it is they can find, and they often eat other living things. And nobody claims that they are immoral because they do that. Well, because that's just the way they are, and they need to do that to survive themselves. Okay, so when it gets to a case like yours, you don't necessarily need it to survive. But if it's something that is making your life somewhat dysfunctional and not optimal, if you think that's a problem, then I would say experiment with it and see. What I think is probably more like it is that because of the fears that you struggle with and that you have, those fears create changes in your physical body. When you have fears, when you have stress, when you have anxiety, all those things will change your biochemistry. It changes your body. And one of the main things it does is it reduces the amount of neurotransmitters you have. It reduces the amount of, say, serotonin that you have. And if your serotonin is not as much as you need, you start to feel down and lethargic, have a hard time getting up in the morning, kind of hard, you get low energy, you feel like you want to sleep a lot. That's one of the symptoms of low neurotransmitters. Okay. Now, serotonin's not the only neurotransmitter, but that's kind of the one that's most well known. Anyway, so my guess is that lethargy and feeling a little down, not depressed, but just feeling a little down and glum and like you just don't have the energy to get up and go anymore. That sounds to me like a low serotonin or a low neurotransmitter issue, and that is created by fear, anxiety, stress, and particularly fears that have to do with being inadequate or being insecure or not quite being good enough. You don't really like yourself so much that you're constantly picking on yourself Oh, you didn't do that right. Oh, you didn't do this right. You need to change. And if you're constantly being negative towards yourself and picking on yourself for not being all that you think you ought to be, then that lowers your serotonin. And when it lowers your serotonin, it makes you, take a step down that road toward depression, which is basically feeling lethargic, not really wanting to get involved, kind of being by yourself, not feeling too social, sort of withdrawn, that sort of thing. So I would say that meat is probably not the solution, but I think it's perfectly all right to experiment. So if you're an animal that needs to eat meat in order to, do well, in order to survive well, in order to be efficient, in order to function, then that puts you in the same place as lions and tigers and bears. It's something you need for your health. I suspect that's not the case, but I would encourage you to experiment and see if that's the case. And like I say, the placebo effect may give you a little upswing in the beginning, but if it's just a placebo, it probably won't last for a long time. 5, 6, 7 months go by, and that effect would go away. If it's not really a biological effect, it's just it's a placebo effect. So experiment, see what happens. Because yes, some people need more protein than others. Some people need more vitamin C than others. It's just our biology is very different. Now, if it's a protein issue, which you could go get some probably blood work done where they could tell you whether or not you're deficient in protein, because that's the main thing that meat brings is more protein. You could have tests done to decide that. But if that's the case, there's other sources of protein as well. You can get protein from vegetable sources. I work out regularly, so I lift weights a couple of times a week, and I take a protein that's from the hemp plant. It's hemp protein, and it's a brownish powder that I ingest. It's not particularly tasty. It's not something I look forward to, but it seems to work. Because if you're going to work out, then you need extra protein when you do that. In general, we think we need a lot more protein than we get. I don't know what it is in your country, but in the U.S., they recommend something like 80 to 100 grams of protein. And about all you need is 20. All of that 80 to 100, I think, is the meat industry has twisted the arms of the people who make those kinds of things up with money, and got boosted up so they can sell more meat. It's just the way it is. So you don't really need that much protein unless you're doing a lot of hard physical exercise. So if what you do for a living is, run or lift heavy things or that sort of thing, then you probably need more protein. But if you live a normal life, then probably 20 grams, 30 grams, and you get that much with hardly even trying. It's not that hard to get 20 grams of protein in a day without making much effort. So that's why I say it's probably not a protein issue. But if you think it is, go experiment. Go try it out. See how it works. That's how we deal with reality, is we experiment and see how it works. So don't feel like that would be an immoral thing to do because you could survive without it. It's not just about survival. It's about being at your best. It's about being able to contribute and care and be the best you can be for those people you love. And you can't be that if you're kind of down and lethargic. You can't do that. So if you require that meat, then you should eat it. Of course, like you say, you can be careful about the source so that you don't contribute to the kind of big mechanistic farming programs that tend to be cruel and hard on animals. You can be choosy how you go about getting that, but if you need it to stay healthy and fit, then you should have it.
I'm not so sure anymore. It sounds like it is the fear work that I have to continue with more, and just be patient, and things will just play out, and they will most likely be better. But it is good to be down because the fears are so easily to catch when you're down. So
Yeah.
so it's much easier for the fear work to be like this.
It is, but when you catch them, don't just throw them away. Get rid of them for good. Don't
Oh
just
yeah,
bury them or hide them or
yeah.
push them around. You got to get rid of them. And I think you'll find that if you do get rid of them, and as you do get rid of them,
Yeah.
that you'll start to get more energy. You'll start to feel lighter and
Yeah.
more like getting involved in things, and that will tend to pick up on its own.
Let's hope that it should.
Positive,
Okay.
positive
Yeah.
outlook. That's the key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think positive, be positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that advice. Now, this is another topic. I was in a chat with a person in one of the MBT Facebook groups, and he referred to something you had talked about in a recent immersive, that consciousness evolves along two dimensions by becoming more caring and by becoming more functional. So I found that very interesting, and I haven't heard you talk about that, so I wonder if you would like to share some more on that topic.
Well, yes, as you evolve the quality of your consciousness, you do become more caring, you become more considerate, you become more thoughtful of other, you become more cooperative, all of those things that are measures of becoming love. But at the same time, you become more, shall we say, you said more functional, but you become more powerful. You become more influential. You're able to help other people much better. As your consciousness evolves, you help pull other people up around you. People look to you and will come to you for advice and for answers, and to answer, for them to answer for you to answer their questions. So you become a more powerful person. People look up to you as your consciousness, increases. So this idea that people have that, well, if I'm love and it's all about other, I'll just become a doormat and everybody will walk all over me because, somebody will push me around and I'll just say, oh, well, that's just you. I'm not going to bother with that. And I won't let you I won't get upset. It's not like that. As you get more and more evolved, you become more and more powerful. Not a doormat, but just the opposite. Your ideas are better. What you contribute to group, discussions and what you contribute at the office and everything gets better and better. You get more respect. You get more, valuable as a mother and as a worker someplace. Everything gets better. So you end up with more power, more influence than you do, than you can in any other way. So yes, it's very functional in your life to evolve the quality of your consciousness. Now look at all the people that you know of who have really done marvelous things, who've changed attitudes, who've basically changed the world in many ways. And if you look at those, for long-term changes, you will find almost all of them were highly evolved people. It's the Martin Luther Kings and the Gandhis and, it's those people who have really changed the world, who have made a big difference in the world. And that big difference just keeps on growing. It just goes away. Yes, we have small-minded people like Adolf Hitler who, made a big flash in the world, but it didn't last long. You see, it didn't even last a decade. It didn't, the influence waned and disappeared very quickly. Now, he serves as a great model of what not to do and what not to become, and that's outlived him. That's gone forward. That this is something that's bad and shouldn't, that we shouldn't act that way. We shouldn't have that kind of attitude toward other people. But what he tried to do got deleted basically and disappeared. And that would always happen. So it's those people who have changed the world in big ways, and those changes have been immense and important. Those are people that are full of love and caring Nelson Mandela would be another one, goes in that list. And there's probably dozens of people if we sat down and thought about it. And these are just the ones that everybody knows about. For every one of those, there's probably, hundreds that we don't know about, who just were really fine, nice people, in their neighborhoods, that they helped everybody else get along and helped everybody else's life be a little better. They're not famous, but these are the people with real power. They make changes in others that go on and last. So, yes, it's very functional to evolve the quality of your consciousness. It's a very functional thing. You become more. You can give more. You can help more.
Because I was thinking more like, functional things that you do, that they also lower entropy. Like if I clean the house, or if I suggest another process at work, that is more on the functional side. And that, I think, that also lowers entropy.
Exactly. Yeah. It does. Yeah. That lowers entropy. And you also get better and better at that, because when you see bigger pictures, that allows you to find efficiencies in processes.
Right.
Where processes get stuck in inefficiency is because people don't see a bigger picture. They're only looking at a little piece of a bigger process. So those people who have bigger pictures and see whole processes, from the beginning to the end, they can look at the sticking points and point out where it needs to be more efficient. Whereas if you have a little, you live in a little world with a small decision space, you don't notice those sorts of things. So yes, you get more productive in that way. And you have a sense that you want to have, say, a tidy house. You want to get up and make your bed in the morning rather than just, not doing that. One might think, well, that's inconsequential. Whether your bed's made or not, who cares? But all of these things are signs of being low entropy, where you want neatness, you want order, you want structure, but that structure has to be meaningful, not just structure for structure's sake. You see, you get those people that want structure just for structure's sake. There's no point in it, and they demand that other people, do this, but it's just doing it because that's what the rules are. In that case, that's not all that helpful. But if it's an expression of a more low entropy you, then that is helpful. And it helps everybody else, because let's say you clean up the house. Well, all the people that live in that house actually feel a little better because you've cleaned it up. You see, you help spread a little positiveness because they're living in a nicer environment. So it's just something that you can do to help other people.